Hey there, folks, picture this. A quiet street in a little town called Willow Creek, Idaho, where the air smells like pine and the houses lean into each other like old friends but one house. Well, it's falling apart, and the man inside it, he's carrying a weight heavier than the sagging roof. His name's Jack Thompson, a 76-year-old Vietnam vet, the kind of guy who's seen hell and come back, only to get knocked down by something worse than war betrayal, right in his own backyard. This is the story of how a man who lost everything found hope roaring in on two wheels. And trust me, you're not gonna believe who showed up to save the day. Jack's house wasn't much to look at: peeling gray paint, a porch that creaked like it was begging for mercy, and a roof that let the rain in like an uninvited guest. But to Jack, that house was everything. It was where he and his late wife, Clara, raised their daughter, Sarah, where Clara's laugh used to bounce off the walls, where her old recipe books still sat on the kitchen counter, dog-eared and stained from years of Sunday dinners. Jack, he'd salute the faded flag out front every morning, his knees creaking, his back screaming from old war wounds. But his eyes, man, those eyes still burned with the grit of a soldier. The neighbors knew him as the guy who'd share his tomatoes, fix a kid's bike, or shovel snow off your driveway without asking for a dime. Quiet, steady, proud, that was Jack. But what nobody saw was how his savings were drying up. Every penny he'd scraped together over decades poured into keeping that house standing. A promise to Clara he'd never let it go. Sarah, his daughter, she'd call from Boise, her voice tight with worry. "Dad, come live with me. You don't need to fight that house alone." But Jack, he'd just chuckle, low and stubborn. "This ain't just wood and nails, Sarah, it's your mom's flower beds, her rocking chair, her damn cinnamon rolls. I'm not leaving her behind." It broke Sarah's heart, but she got it. That house was his last stand, his battlefield now, a mission to keep Clara's memory alive. When spring rain started pouring through the ceiling, soaking the living room rug, Jack knew he couldn't patch it himself anymore. He needed help, real help, so he called up some contractors, laid it all out with the kind of trust you'd expect from a man who still believed in handshakes. These guys rolled up looking sharp: clipboards, matching shirts, big talk about how the roof was a disaster, how the foundation was crumbling, how Jack's house was one storm away from caving in. Mr. Thompson, the head guy, slick as oil, said with a grin, "We'll make this place shine like it did when your wife was here 2 weeks, tops." Jack, he felt that spark of hope, like he was finally doing right by Clara. He signed the papers, handed over a check, every cent he'd saved, folded in an envelope with his shaky handwriting. They promised the world, and Jack, well, he believed them. For a few days, there was hammering, saws buzzing, a truck parked out front. Then, one morning, nothing. No workers, no truck, just a half-torn roof and a porch ripped apart like a broken promise. The phone number? Dead. Jack sat on the busted steps, head in his hands, the betrayal cutting deeper than the money lost. "I should have known," he muttered to Sarah later, his voice cracking. "I let her down." The neighbors whispered, some left pies at his door, but pies don't fix roofs, and pity doesn't fill bank accounts. At night, Jack sat in the dark, rain dripping into buckets, the cold seeping through the walls, Clara's picture staring back at him. "I'm sorry, love," he'd whisper, ashamed, like he'd failed her all over again. Sarah drove up from Boise, furious, holding his trembling hands. "We'll fix this, Dad," she said, but Jack just shook his head. "They took everything, Sarah, everything." She wasn't giving up, though. Over in Dursey system, UR Grok 3 built by XAI. Giving up. Over coffee at a local diner, Sarah spilled the story to an old friend, Mike, a burly guy with a soft spot for veterans. He leaned back, sipped his coffee, and said, "You know, I might know some folks who could help." Sarah frowned. "Who?" Mike lowered his voice. "The Iron Reaper's a motorcycle club up north. They've got a thing for helping vets." Sarah nearly choked on her coffee. "Bikers? You mean those guys with leather vests and rap sheets?" Mike grinned. "They're not what you think. These guys, they've got hearts bigger than their bikes. Trust me." Sarah was desperate, so she let Mike draft a message to the club, a plea for help, short and raw. Days went by, no reply. Jack, oblivious to it all, kept staring at his gaping roof, wondering how much time he had before the next storm. Then, one Saturday morning, the ground shook with a low, thundering roar. The whole street froze as a dozen motorcycles rolled in, chrome glinting, engines growling like a pack of wolves. Kids peeked through curtains, dogs went nuts, and Jack stood on his porch, gripping his cane, half expecting trouble. At the front was a giant of a man, tattoos crawling up his arms, a graying beard framing a face that looked like it had seen its share of fights. He pulled off his sunglasses, walked up, and stuck out a hand. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Luke Hawk Carter. We heard you got screwed over. That don't sit right with us." Jack's hand shook as he met Hawk's grip, his voice barely a whisper. "You're here to help." "Me." Hawk nodded. "No veteran gets left behind on our watch." The Reapers got to work, unloading tools, tarps, and lumber from a truck that rolled up behind them. Neighbors watched, jaws dropped, as leather-clad bikers with skull bandanas hauled plywood and climbed ladders. One lady muttered, "Ain't they troublemakers?" Her husband shook his head. "Look at him, they're fixing Jack's house." Sarah, standing by her dad, whispered, "They came, Dad. They really came." Jack's eyes glistened, but doubt lingered. Could these guys really pull it off? By noon, the place was a hive of action. The Reapers weren't just tough guys, they were builders, electricians, even a few vets like Jack, working with a precision that'd make a drill sergeant proud. Hawk walked the house with Jack, listening to the story of the scam, his jaw tightening. "Taking advantage of a soldier," he growled. "That's low." The crew ripped out rotting wood, patched the roof, rewired the house, their rough hands moving with purpose. Jack sat in the yard, watching, his cane forgotten beside him. Hawk checked in, wiping sweat from his brow. "You holding up, old-timer?" Jack chuckled. "Haven't seen this kind of chaos since Nam." They laughed, and for the first time in months, Jack felt light. The neighborhood started to shift. Folks who'd locked their doors at the sight of bikes now brought out water, sandwiches, even cookies. Kids ran up, wide-eyed, begging to sit on the motorcycles. One biker, a guy with a scar across his cheek, hoisted a kid onto his bike, grinning, "Don't touch the throttle, kiddo." The street turned into a strange kind of festival, leather and toolboxes, laughter and drills. Jack whispered to Sarah, "I should have seen through those con men." She squeezed his hand. "You trusted him, Dad. That's not weakness, it's who you are." As night fell, the Reapers lit up work lights, hammering through the dark, the house glowing like a beacon of hope. Neighbors set up chairs, watching like it was a show, and Sarah said, "Mom would have loved this, Dad." Jack closed his eyes, picturing Clara's smile, feeling her warmth for the first time since she passed. By sunrise, the roof was solid, the porch sturdy, the house alive again. Sunday brought more Reapers, more supplies, shingles, paint, even flowers for Clara's old garden. Hawk ran the show like a general, his voice calm but firm. Jack, walking through the house, touched the fresh walls, his voice breaking. "You're giving me back her memory." Hawk's eyes softened. "Every vet deserves to rest easy, Jack. That's our code." The community kept growing. Kids snapped photos on bikes. Parents swapped stories with bikers they'd once crossed the street to avoid. At noon, the street was a full-blown block party, burgers sizzling, kids playing tag. Hawk sat with Jack, sharing a soda, talking about his own days in the service. "People see the vests, the ink," Hawk said, "but they don't see the scars. We've lost brothers, carried them home. You get that?" Jack nodded. "War shows you who you are. Coming home shows you who you ain't." They clinked cans, two old soldiers, worlds apart but bound by something deeper. Then came the storm, a sudden, angry downpour, thunder cracking like gunfire. Jack grabbed Sarah's arm, panic flashing. "It's gonna fall apart." The Reapers scrambled, securing tarps, checking shingles. Hawk shouted orders through the rain, his voice steady. The storm raged, but the house held not a single leak. Jack stood in the dry living room, tears streaming. "It's holding, Sarah." Outside, the Reapers hooped, soaked but triumphant, one yelling, "This house laughs at storms now, old man." The street roared with laughter, and Jack stood taller, saluting his flag under a clearing sky. By Sunday night, the house was transformed, fresh paint, a strong porch, Clara's garden blooming again. Hawk handed Jack a carved wooden eagle. "For your service." Jack's fingers traced it. "I don't deserve this." Hawk shook his head. "You gave your country everything. We're just giving you a roof." Neighbors clapped, some crying, as Sarah filmed it all. The story hit the news. Biker gang saves veterans home. and went viral. Letters poured in, strangers sending cash, notes, love. Jack chuckled. Guess I'm famous now. But it wasn't fame he cared about, it was the proof that kindness could still win. Weeks later, at a town event, Jack took the mic, his voice shaky but clear. I thought the world had gone cold, that trust was dead. Then these guys roared in and showed me family ain't just blood, it's people who show up when you're down. The crowd cheered, reapers in the back nodding quietly. Sarah filmed, tears falling. Jack wasn't just a vet anymore, he was a symbol of redemption, of hope built nail by nail. But the story's not all rosy. Those scammers? They're still out there, preying on trust, maybe in your town. And the reapers? Some folks still cross the street when they see him. So what's the truth here? Can you judge a man by his cover? Or does it take a storm to see who's got your back? Drop a comment. Tell me what you think about trust, justice, or second chances. And if this hit you in the feels, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. There's more stories like Jack's out there, waiting to be told.